Hello, and welcome to Limitless Talks. This is a podcast on limitless leadership and how experience becomes a growth lever in the boardroom. I am your host, Camila Ferreira, an award winning CX leader, an author of Long Live CX, and an international speaker. Today, we're going to talk about beyond the funnel and why attention doesn't matter, but behavior does. And in order to have this conversation with me, I have Americo Da Costa, who is a customer minded professional who has a very interesting background, not only in CX, but more recently with live streaming as well. And it's important to say that Americo is a boomerang guest. He has been here in this show last year when it was Rise Up CX Talks, and we have a very great conversation, one of the first guests of the show. And now I have the pleasure to welcome him back to talk about the impact on live streaming on the show, on CX experience. So with no further ado, Americo, please take the stage and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Great to be back, Camila. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation we had, and I am happy to share a little bit about myself. My name is Americo Da Costa. Yes, I've cross-functional leadership has been my background in financial services, banking, insurance, as well as credit. Most recently, prior to leaving or exiting that corporate boardroom role, I was in CX. I was a CX leader for one of the top credit organizations, global credit organizations. And today, I'm taking my experience and my knowledge that is always been customer centric and customer focused, bringing it to the grassroots, solopreneurs, small business owners, because I feel there's an opportunity for me to give back at this stage of my journey, and I want to help those organizations and those professionals who perhaps are pivoting similar to myself and yourself, and pivoting and want to give back to the economy, but under their own personal brand, their own business. So I'd love to jump into this conversation. I'm excited because this world for me allows me to bring everything that I'm passionate about and bring it to a conversation in real time and drive value and impact. And you know what? I don't want to steal the show. Why don't you kick off the questions, and I'd love to get started.
Absolutely. And it's so good to have leaders like you looking for giving it back to the community. I was speaking in another show earlier this morning, and I was talking about the power and the value of having mentors. They help us so much on avoiding committing those mistakes that the mentor has committed before, but also on guiding us in those challenging situations that we all face. So it's really good to have
Yeah.
someone like you working on giving back to the community. And before we kick it off, I want to invite the audience. We are live on Instagram, on YouTube, and also on LinkedIn. I want to invite the audience to be part of this show as well. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, don't keep this to yourself. Just share with us, and I will be more than happy to bring this live stage.
And don't
Uh,
forget, like, comment, and share. Don't just ask us questions. Let your friends, let your community know what you're doing. And if you don't have time to do it now live, help us out by repurposing and sharing this with your community.
Oh, I love it. Not like having someone who knows how to do it well, giving us, sharing all of those recommendations and tips. So let's kick it off. I have come up with a few questions, but as I said, if our audience has questions as well, let's make this a very live conversation. But one of the things that I want to explore, America, is that you have worked in traditional CX, in organizations, in corporate, designing journeys. That's exactly the way how you and I met on
Yes.
LinkedIn. And now you focus on live streams, which is something that before going live, you and I were talking about the relevance and the value it brings to the CX journey. So where do you see the biggest disconnection between attention and actual customer behavior, in your opinion?
The biggest disconnect that's a fabulous question. The biggest disconnect that I see from lens is how the customer experience has become transactional versus conversational. And one of the core reasons why I I believe and want to bring this live conversation into the equation. Customers, fall into a whole bunch of categories depending on what boardroom and what conversation you're part of. So I'm in that marketing lane, and for me, it's important to drive awareness because every time someone needs to make a purchasing decision, guess what they're going to do? They're going to look up products, they're going to look up reviews, they're going to measure and gauge an organization's reputation, a product's opinion and sentiment from other consumers. But most of that is transactional stuff. Most of that is written, and looking at who I want to help, looking at the niche that I want to help, and understanding the magnitude and that event marketing and webinars bring, which, by the way, it's a $2.3 trillion industry. So someone at some boardroom table understands how big, how important this is. So I want to bring, conversations to life, because today we've kind of gotten in this fast lane. This has become an attention economy. How quick can we get to market? How quick can we get a customer in the door? But customers are screaming. It's like, I just want someone to talk to.
Oh my goodness.
I don't want to read something. I don't want to talk to a bot. I want to talk to someone who can answer my questions in real time. So when you put your marketing hat on, you put your customer journey hat on, and you hear what customers are asking for, we're driving that through live streams.
Oh
We're
my
having
goodness.
those conversations.
Music to my ears, because yeah, if we do not drive behavior change that can only be driven by through trust, and yeah, mostly through trust, then you're not going to kind of grow your business, you're not going to sustain your business long term. And I agree with you, particularly on how public the environment that surrounds public companies, that they work by quarter. They need to show numbers, you name
Yeah,
it, your followers or your engagement or your audience. Okay, but are you actually translating this into business growth? Are all of your followers, or what is the percentage of your followers that are actually buying from you? And if tomorrow you kind of change your price point, will they stuck with you, or they're going to look for something at the same kind of a price point? Those are the things that matter the most when we discuss long-term business sustainability. But
absolutely.
I think that coming, of course, pandemic was a few years ago, but that's when we experienced this, the boom of the online business. Everybody
Yeah.
was locked at home, and then because we had so much time at home, we started kind of following a lot more pages or following a lot more people, and at some point in time, it was translated into business, but it's no longer the case, right? So we have the what we call the new normal, and we cannot be stuck into just metrics that do not translate into business.
Oh no, you're speaking to the choir. You're singing to the choir here. Um, yes, the pandemic opened the doors to a lot of opportunity in this e-commerce space, but for whatever reason, a lot of people thought that the pivot was from short form and long form written content into video. And that's, you see the Instagrams really taking off, and the video content booming. But video content still lacks connection, that real time connection that only live streaming can provide. Hey, at the end of this conversation, we're going to take these digital assets and we're going to repurpose them, and they will become video content. And I just love, what you can do. It's evergreen. We're having a real-time conversation. People are going to engage with us in real time if they have questions. And guess what we're doing? You talked about trust. We're also building credibility and social authority, right?
Oh, absolutely. It has been a turning point for me and to my business when I decided to show up. And it's interesting that you mention the written content, because right before kicking off my business, I reached out to a few people to, again, get inspired, to learn past mistakes before I step into my own journey. And one of the main advice, or the most common advice that I got to grow community, was to have my own newsletter. And I was like, well, I understand, but I don't consider myself a writer. It's not something natural from me. I can write a few kind of a short sentences, but I don't feel like I am the person to be behind a newsletter. I just think that this will not be, it wouldn't be my true self
Mhm.
in that newsletter.
All
So
right, so I'm gonna
I,
pause you there for a second if I can.
of course,
You and I had the same mindset. I never saw myself or recognized myself as a writer. I never really enjoyed writing in my academic years. Reading and writing was not my most favorable way of learning, right? But fast forward to today, understanding customer behavior and understanding it's the importance of meeting your community and meeting your audience where they hang out is also something that I turned a blind eye to up until recently. Hey, I might not like it, but in order for me to open and widen my reach, I have to be open to hanging out and showing up where community members enjoy consuming content through the written word. So today's event and the conversations that I have and the conversations that I help others host has that component. My content stack that I coach and that I work with starts with live and then branches out. Take that live content and let's redistribute it to those who consume content in the written word. So I
oh,
will take this to Substack. And then you got your audience and community members who like that short and snappy content, those short video clips. I take those to YouTube. And each of those channels point to the others. Hey, if you like this short clip, you can either read the full summary over on Substack, and here's a link. If you want to listen to the replay on demand, hey, you can go and hang out on YouTube and listen to the entire thing. So now there's diversity in terms of content, and you're now meeting the needs of your community and distributing your conversation, your content, and driving your value proposition in ways that they prefer to consume it.
Oh, I love it. And I love it because, again, of course, we now have a lot more tools than before. And one single conversation like this can be transformed into many different pieces of information. But my point before was about the authenticity, which I believe is very important to what you do and how you show up. So the source of everything all the different pieces of communication is your live stream, which is something that you feel more natural for you as it is for me.
Yeah.
I've never seen myself kind of writing a newsletter. I would say, even if it's someone else would read and appreciate it, I would knew deep inside that it was not kind of a my true self on that particular newsletter. On the other hand, the live streaming, the podcast, this is where I find home. I could podcast all day long. I can talk nonstop for the entire day. And then from there, as you correctly saying, and I love that, from there, you distribute that content, those insights to different kind of channels, and you're going to meet your audience where they are, which is
Yeah.
one of the principles of customer experience. You got to meet your client, your customer, where they are and not necessarily where you are. So I love it. And I
That's
love that there are ways of doing this a lot easier and more simple than before.
and it's I get asked often, it's like, how do you go from being this customer experience office corporate type of persona to a tech? I'm still showing up with the customer at the center of what I'm doing. And I'm helping those who thought they couldn't afford the resources to drive customer centricity. There are solutions. There are viable ways to meet your community. And I started a community over on school. It's called Your Stage. If you can see behind me, Your Stage live, and I welcome people to come in. I understand that different business owners have different budgets. Hey, if you are at that do-it-yourself stage, I want to be able to help you drive value. And you want to wear those multiple hats. Hey, we've all been there. And I want to help you wear that particular hat, your marketing hat, and deliver the best return on your investment of time so that you can drive people into your ecosystem. Live
Wow, I love
streaming.
it.
Live streaming is really about raising awareness. And I tell people, focus on your customer, focus on the behaviors that are going to drive that awareness, focus on the behaviors that will drive value through storytelling. Everyone asks me, how quick can I make money? How quick can I turn my live stream into a revenue stream? Like, revenue should be the furthest thing from your mind. Even though it's the objective, the minute you come in hard and heavy, people know when they're being sold to.
Oh,
So you got to be extremely careful, right? You want to drive value, you do it through storytelling. You want to build trust, you do it through storytelling. And you're doing this in real time. And as you accumulate these assets, and as social media does with precision, if you fill your conversations with keywords and you drive value and you redistribute it so that you can be discovered, people are going to find you. People are going to say, hey, there's value here. There's trust being built. There's credibility being built. And before you know it, your calendar starts getting filled. You start having conversations with people who are interested in learning more, and that becomes your revenue stream. So understand that live streaming as a marketing strategy, it's a long tail strategy. If you think that you're going to come up with a pop-up event and you're going to start selling your products and people are going to line up, it's not going to work. You save
no.
your
I,
money.
I don't I don't believe in overnight success.
Yeah,
So it's
neither do I.
important that you not only show up, but as you were saying, having the consistency. So defining what is the niche, your targeted audience, so your niche. What do you solve for them? At the end of the day, it's not about you, but about them.
That's right.
How can you make their life better, easier, whatever? And once you have this very much clear, then is when you will start showing up consistently on your message and how you would solve for that a particular targeted audience from different perspectives. Because as we were discussing before, you got to meet your client where they are and not where you are.
That's right. Or where you want them to be. Sometimes people say, here's, and we've heard this, and I'm sure we have stories where in a boardroom, decisions are made. Here's how we define customer experience. Here's where we need to bring the customers in, and here's the behaviors we need to exhibit, and we're going to predefine what customer experience is, whether it is average speed of answer, how quickly can we get them on the phone, off the phone, from our home landing page on a website to a cart. And it's become all transactional. It's become all digital, and customers are screaming. It's like, hey, how about listening to me? How about telling me what I want to hear? We
Yeah.
don't experience that anymore. And it's I'm going to pause here for a second because it's also one of the values that I drive through live streams. You talk about market research. Some organizations have our R&D departments where they're doing their research. Smaller businesses, hey, live streams are a great place. If you have an idea, you have a product launch, and you want to hear from your customers, you want to hear from your prospects, you want to hear from the persona that you're selling to, host a market research. Go have a live event and let them share with you what's important to them, what they're looking for. and it'll give you an idea from real people that you want to potentially sell to. You're collecting data and you're collecting sentiment over a live conversation.
I love it.
Many ways to split the whole webinar and the whole live event. It's not just marketing, it's also research. Like there's so many things we can do here to help improve and accelerate that customer's journey.
Oh, I love it because I not only agree what you said that sometimes in the boardroom we are talking about how to move or how to take the clients to where we want without necessarily listening to them, but more more moreover, sometimes when we are communicating with those clients, we are using the company's language and not the client's language,
Mhm.
just assuming they would understand as we would, which is not necessarily true. So we forget that for companies to be alive and for us to have a long-term sustainable businesses, we need to be constantly engaging and solving for those clients. And what you do today to solve for them might not be what you're going to have to do tomorrow because we are all changing and things are evolving. So creating this trustworthy relationship with your clients is what is going to drive the long-term sustainable business, not the
Yeah,
other way around.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, but speaking of your business, because I want to explore this a little bit more. Yeah, no, I love what you are doing. You have a framework called LEAD, and I want you to walk us through of what is this framework, how does it help your audience or your clients? What is this LEAD framework about?
All right. So LEAD was an acronym that brings four principles, and in fact, five principles because there's two in the D. But everyone who is open to the idea of live content, they need to do two things for themselves. They need to be able to lower their barriers of entry into this ecosystem because many people are reluctant to do it because they're overwhelmed, whether it's because of the tech, whether it's because of, you know, what if nobody shows up? What if, you know, um, I look, people have a tendency of thinking what others perceive of them. And we tend to become our biggest obstacle.
Oh,
So
totally.
it's really about helping ourselves lower those barriers of entry, but also lowering the barriers for those on the receiving side. So we talked moments ago about knowing how to sequentially have the conversation live. You don't want to front load it as a sales pitch. You want to lower those barriers because the minute someone jumps into your webinar, if they know they're going to be sold, then that guard is up and you want to be able to lower those that guard, right? You want
Mhm.
that listener, that audience member, that community member to have that guard lowered so they can feel comfortable in asking questions, feel comfortable to trust what you're saying, which brings us to, that whole engagement piece. It's easy for me and easy for anyone to host a top-down live event. This one to many. Here I am, here's my value proposition, here's what we can do for you, blah, 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 blah. And let's connect and buy from me now. No, you want to engage, you want to make it conversational. So engagement is important. You've lowered the barriers. Now you've given your audience member that opportunity to engage, ask questions, to continue to build and evolve that trust. The A is simply about amplifying. All right, we went live. Now what? Well, now is when the heavy lifting starts. You want to amplify that message. You want to take whatever may have occurred and you're going to repurpose, you're going to redistribute, and you're going to drive value through credibility and that social proof by amplifying your message. Right. So that's the heavy marketing piece where, all right, it's don't just leave that conversation that was live and that whole opposed to passing behaviors with value from those assets. And then you wrap it up with what are we doing here? We are developing relationships. We are developing trust. And then finally, you're developing that revenue pipeline. And if you do that consistently, and it's a repeatable framework, you show up for each conversation. And for some, consistency might be, hey, I want to show up once a week. Others might be, you're in a seasonal business. Travel is a great example. Travel has, your vacation season, your honeymoon season, the winter, some it's broken into segments. You can do 4 shows, 4 events, and you break it up. You do 1 per quarter, and each quarter you're going to redistribute. You're going to amplify and drive value and share the information to build trust, and that will swim around in the ecosystem, and people will find you. Your content, when planned properly, when planned effectively, you'll be sleeping and your content will be working for you. So
I love it.
Developing relationships, and then finally developing that revenue stream.
I love the framework. And I agree with absolutely everything you said. And even though, again, I think that for whoever is starting or thinking about doing this, it's important to bring the timing or the time factor into place, because it's not one live streaming that will make all the difference. It's
That's
the
right.
consistency. And in my program that I have for leadership as well, what I normally say is, how often can you commit yourself to show up? There isn't a secret formula that you have to do that amount of events, but how often can you commit? Right? So it's going to be once a week, once a month, once a quarter. It's your commitment, but do this, commit to yourself and show up. And there is something that you mentioned that I like to explore, which is you first give for them to ask something in exchange. But most of the webinars, and that's why I think people go with those barriers so high, is that you step into the webinar knowing that the host will sell something at the end, or in the middle, or at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were like, well, I'm not here. The reason why I'm not here is not me, but the host. And speaking of customer experience, again, you have to solve for your client. So what am I going to give first in order to ask for your trust, in order to ask for something from you? And if you design this in a way that is very much sales driven, it does not help you build trust. So how can you go in the first event, in the first workshop, in the first seminar, whatever it is, and present something and start asking people to buy from you?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I'll recommend, for someone who just wants to do a pop-up. Like, a pop-up doesn't mean one event. Your pop-up could be fireside chat. Let's just have a conversation. This is social selling. You're building your personal brand or your business brand. And it could be a fireside chat. It could be just a Q&A, and you're not talking about your products. You're just creating an environment that allows those who are attending to lower their barriers and learn.
Absolutely.
And you're absolutely right. Philanthropy is a part of marketing. You got to give before you receive.
Absolutely. You give to get. That's what I really say. You give to get, right? And in leadership is exactly the same, or in everything we do. And this, to me, is this customer experience mindset, that you are constantly putting yourself on someone else's shoes, trying to see the world from their perspective, and then help them to be where they want to be, which is not necessarily where you want them to be.
That's right.
That's the other important thing.
Absolutely.
But speaking of organizations, so you help entrepreneurs, but you have also worked in multinational companies. I think the 1 million question is, how do we turn audience into revenue? I think that from From our times in pandemic, we were talking about those big influencers that we know do not have the same power as they used to. We are now transitioning to micro influencers, people that are more connected to the community, where people that can show up authentically, where they can, through their authenticity, they can build that relationship and that trust. So me as a final consumer, I know that I'm not being exposed to another advertisement, but to a product or to someone that is actually using that product or service and is giving back to the community in terms of advising, sharing great things rather than just selling. So how do you help them kind of transform their audience into revenue?
All right. So listen to what you just said. Micro influencers, micro communities. It's about being present among those that you want to serve and solve for. And presence comes at a very low cost in this environment. You can show up virtually and have that connection and be present with members. And I'll use the best example, or the most recent example, the real estate industry. And I tell all my realtor connections and people who I talk to in that particular industry, I see you showing up on Instagram all the time. You got your videos, the properties that you're listing, and you're driving value through a well orchestrated video. But where do people ask questions? They'll put them in the comments. You might not have time to get to them. Why not go live? And if people who are interested in what you have to share, they're going to have questions. And you don't want to create that lag in response. You want to be able to answer those in real time. And if you really want to convert and sell, focus less on your product and focus on the customer. We talked about it earlier. Meet your customer where they're at. Keeping that same example, that real estate industry example. Hey, host a live and bring mortgage professionals, bring industry related professionals to the conversation. Hey, here's what you're going to need to know to get pre-qualified, to get a loan, a mortgage for this property. Here are things you may not have thought you want to be prepared for. Moving expenses, moving companies. And when you start bringing people together and industries together, and you make it less about your product and your sale, you're driving value. You're creating that journey, and you're helping that customer envision what that's going to look like. You're going to raise awareness, or people are going to start asking, it's like, well, I never thought of that. Something to consider. And when it comes time to make a decision, it may not be with that particular property, may not be with that particular product. They're going to remember you. So my mantra last year was be seen, be heard, and be remembered. You may not sell at that first point of contact, but someone's going to remember. It's like, hey, you know what? You're going to want to reach out to Camila. I attended one of her live events, and let me tell you, knowledgeable, industry leader in her space. I did not feel the pressure to buy. She educated me. She drove value. And if I had to make a decision to buy, I would definitely go to Camila first. And your audience and your community start to become your advocates. And your marketing efforts are now being driven not only by yourself, but by those that you've influenced. And that, to answer your question, is how you're going to sell in today's economy, in today's social fabric. You want to drive value, and there's no better way to do it than by curating a journey for a customer in real time.
Oh, I love it. And I love the realtor example. And most likely, all of what you were describing, the moving expenses, all of this knowledge that the realtor definitely has, those are the questions they get every day from their potential clients. what they don't realize is that by
Yeah,
answering those questions,
absolutely.
add a lot of value for people that are not familiar with that particular situation. Like in the podcast I attended this morning, we were talking about living abroad. So for whoever has already moved, we faced some challenges that, and we've learned from those experiences that can be very much helpful for whoever is thinking of moving internationally. Again, how can you nurture your audience? Give them the knowledge, give them, share with them those experiences. And what you were saying later in your comment, that whenever you show up authentically and you are not constantly trying to sell yourself, but to add value to your audience, people will remember you. And I can tell
Yeah,
you, Americo,
absolutely.
how many times this has happened to me already. Like, oh, I attended one of your podcasts, even the podcast that I host or podcast that I was a guest, and I like how you talk, or I like the examples you shared, the things that the value that you brought to my life. And that's how the selling conversation started, because somehow I have already given or added some value to that person, which was not a sales pitch,
That's right.
right? And then the conversation starts. Okay, what is your situation? How do you believe I can be helpful for you with my experience, with my knowledge? So again, it's a very valuable when you take this approach, this mindset that you first give to then ask something in exchange. And moreover, whenever you are creating content, you do not necessarily control the reach of this content, right? As you were saying, from one live event, we can create different pieces of information, a newsletter, a kind of a short video, the entire video of the podcast that is uploaded after the live show. And someone is watching, oh, I like this, I'm going to share with a friend that shares with someone else, and so on and
Hmm.
so forth. So to me, it's less about the quantity of people that I will impact, but the impact I can have in at least one person. If I'm able to impact at least one person with the knowledge that I have acquired throughout my life, the experiences that I have gone through, if this can help someone to make a better decision, to make a decision, because sometimes we are just waiting for some advice, and that must be what you have to share. So don't hold this to yourself. Definitely show up, but show up authentically in a way that your main objective is to give back to the community. And I am pretty sure the community will give back to you.
Absolutely. And here's some advice that I want to close off and tie the framework to end the sales conversation. So when you host your event, you're focused on bringing people. So you may have a registration format so that you can collect emails. Like, how am I going to sell to these people eventually? And keeping in mind, selling is always at the back of your mind. Yes, you're going to get people to register. People are going to RSVP. Be prepared. Those who RSVP may not attend. But you got your hot leads, who are the people who attend. You got your warm leads, who are the people who registered, couldn't attend. They'll watch or listen to the replay. But here's the important thing. Just because they've registered, just because they attended, does not allow you the right to start selling right after the event. I advise highly, you've earned the right to continue the conversation, to
Love it.
continue nurturing the conversation. Don't go hard and heavy. Take the right and the privilege that that attendee has given you and massage it as a continuance. Let's continue this conversation because you want to understand the needs and how you can tailor your offer and your value proposition to solve the needs of that customer. If you come in, it's like, hey, thanks for attending. Here's what I got for you. Here's how much it's going to cost. When can we get started? You're going to take them from having lowered their barriers, earning a little bit of their trust, to putting those barriers back up. So respect the fact that they've given you the right to continue the conversation and not the right to sell at the end of the conversation.
Yeah. Put yourself on the customer's shoes. How would you like to be treated, or what kind of experience would you like to have if you were the audience? That is the best way for you to design your event as a host, right? Americo, we are approaching the end. Again, a pleasure to have you here.
Fantastic.
I'm sure that, so I learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience learned a lot as well. So, what is the best way to engage with you? What is the best way to get to know more of what you do, and what about the live streaming, showing up live? Tell people your contact information.
All right. So you can reach me in one of two ways most effectively. Go visit your stage community over on school. Come take a look at what we're building. Come take a look at how we're helping our community members. Visit our website. It's www.journeylogic. So we keep that customer journey in our business name and trying to make it logical. And so the name hasn't changed. The value hasn't changed in terms of customer centricity. You can visit the website. You can come join the community, and rest assured, you're not going to be pitched when you join the community. You will find a place that suits you best. It may be part of, right now the community is open and it's free for everyone. And in due course, the community will kind of branch out into different pillars that will be paid in terms of services. But you can also find me on socials. You can find me over on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. Americo Da Costa is where you'll find me on LinkedIn. And Journey Logic is where you're going to find me everywhere else.
Amazing. And I'm going to have your handles at the description of this episode on YouTube as well. So again, Americo, thank you very much for taking the time to be here. Thank you very much for sharing all of the tips and knowledge that you did today. Speaking of how to transform your audience into revenue, you give to get.
That's right. Lower
Thank
those
you so much.
barriers, develop those relationships, folks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'll see you all in the next episode.
Thanks for having me.